Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have such an exciting review video and I actually can't wait to do this video. I'm so excited by these pens. So recently Karin Markers brought out a set of brand new brush pens, but they're acrylic paint pens. So they're like paint pens, but they've got a flexible nib, which is just amazing. You may have seen some of my other Karin videos. I've got my normal box of Karin Markers behind me, which I bought with my own money, by the way, and I absolutely love them. So when they reached out and asked me if I wanted to try their new pens, of course I had to say yes. So the lovely people at Karin kindly sent me this enormous box. It's really heavy. So this has been kindly gifted, but I haven't been paid to make this video, and everything I'm going to say in this video is my own opinion. So let's just dive right in and start playing with these pens because there's so many to play with. So first up, we're just going to take a look at this packaging because it is absolutely stunning. So on top, it's got the Karin logo and it also says Pigment Decobrush, and that is the name of the pen. And then I'm just going to flip it this way because it's a little bit easier to show you. So inside the box, there are smaller boxes that you can slide out. And what I absolutely love about these is it's got the names of the different colours on this side, and then it's got the colour swatches on this side. So it's really easy to navigate and know which box to go for depending on what colours you're looking for. I am obsessed with these pastel colours. How pretty do they look? I think it's really lovely how they have sectioned off the pens like this. And it does mean you can buy these boxes individually if you can't quite afford the big box. So this box is currently £231 on Amazon, which I know is quite steep, but you're actually getting quite a lot of pens for that. So there's 12 pens in one of these, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Quick maths is 84. So there's 84 pens in total, which is really good for how good quality Karin brush markers are, and the packaging as well is just stunning. I think you can also get it in a smaller set, so perhaps these three. Let me just double check. So you can get the basic colours, passion colours, and the violet blue colours as well. I think when the box comes, the nature colours and violet blue colours are actually the other way around, but I've been playing with these. So you can get these three in a smaller box, which is £107, and then these individual boxes are just under £40 each. So they are an investment, but Karin Markers are such good quality and they last such a long time as well. So if you're looking to upgrade your brush lettering, then I really recommend some of these. And what's great about these specific ones is that they can work on dark card and chalkboard and glass, and that's what we're going to have a look at today. As well as all of the boxes in here, there's also this pull-out sheet in the top. This just has information about the pens. So you need to make sure that the pens are actually stored horizontally. So there are other pens you store vertically and they come in a vertical upright box, whereas these need to be stored horizontally. And that's why these boxes are so good, because it forces you to store them in the correct way. So it just talks a little bit about the pens here. I will go into a little bit more information about these when we start doing the swatch test. So before we dive into swatching, I just want to show you inside one of these boxes because it's so cool. So inside we have our pens, of course. Look how beautiful they are. They are all stunning. This is the basics colour. I love that there's a white in here too. But what I absolutely love is that they put a swatch palette on the box, which is so cool. So that's how I'm going to swatch all the colours today. We're going to swatch on here, and it shows you what it looks like on white and black, which is again really cool. As well as having these swatch squares here, they also all come with these stickers. This is actually the pastel one because I've got them a little bit mixed up. But basically it means that if you have a set of favourite colours and you want to take that somewhere, what you could do is you could actually stick this down on here. So this, for example, is the pastel yellow, and then you can take it away with you. So you can customise the boxes, so you don't have to keep them in this colour set. You could switch them up if you want and customise them, which I think is so cool. So it's got the sticker for the front as well, so you can stick it on there, and then you've got the swatches there. How cool is that? I really love that idea. I personally think I'm going to keep it in the original layout just because I think these are really satisfying how they're laid out already. And I think if I'm going to take these anywhere, I'd probably just take the basics because you've got all your bog standard colours. I've also just spotted on here, there's some clear instructions on what to do every time you use these pens, and I think it's just a good little bit of aftercare. So the idea is you put all of the pens back in their slots, and then it says to turn it upside down and then make it go flat. So I think that just gets the ink running properly in the pens, so when you're storing them they don't dry out. In general, these boxes are such good quality. Like, this card is so thick and it satisfyingly closes with a magnetic closure, which is very subtle. I quite like that. And then they just slot back into place here, which is so good. And that just slots in the top bit there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do the swatch tests. I'm going to speed this process up a little bit because it's going to take a little while. But while I do that, I am also going to tell you a little bit more about these pens and what you can't do with them. And then we're going to have some fun actually using them on different materials. So the Pigment Deco markers use an opaque paint instead of an ink like their normal Brush Pro markers. And that means it can be used on things like paper, metal, glass, plastic, wood, textile, that's really cool, and other materials. So it is a matte paint and it can be used on dark surfaces, which means it can be used on black paper, which I'm so excited about because I don't have any brush pens really apart from a few metallics that can be used on black paper. And I think it's such a lovely way to make your lettering pop by putting colour onto black. So I'm so excited by the fact that these can be used on black paper. So the paint inside these markers are similar to acrylic paints, so they're quite similar to other paint pens like the Posca paint pen, for example. However, the thing that makes it a bit game-changing is the fact that they are all brush tip, which is so cool. There are a few brush tip paint pens out there, but the fact that Karin have brought out this huge set of incredible colours all with brush tips is so exciting, especially for things like chalkboard lettering, or if you want to do place names for a wedding, then I think these all look so cool. The other exciting thing about these pens is that although they're paint pens, they can still be blended, which is so exciting. So they can basically be blended until the paint dries. So you might have to work quite quick. We're going to experiment with some blending later. And then Karin said that the drying time of the paint will depend on the surface, which I think is pretty standard when it comes to paint pens. Once it is fully dry, they do say that it is fully waterproof, but it can still be removed from surfaces. So I think this basically means that if you were to spray it with a cleaner and then use a cloth to rub it off, then it will come off. So that, again, that's pretty standard with paint pens. And they've suggested that if you want to make it scrub resistant, then you could always put a varnish on it, which again is something I do with any other paint pen as well. So I've already mentioned that these need to be stored horizontally. So this is different to their Brush Marker Pros, which should be stored vertically. So do bear that in mind. If you buy them, make sure you're storing them properly. I personally am going to keep them in the box because I think the box is absolutely beautiful. It looks nice and it's an easy way to store the pens basically. These can be blended very similarly to the other Karin brush marker pens, and as you know, I like to blend. So we're going to be experimenting a little bit with that today. However, I am thinking of doing a full tutorial on blending these pens because there's so much to explore today and I don't think I could do the blending side complete justice. So if you do want me to do a whole blending tutorial video on these pens, then let me know in the comments below because I would actually love to do that. Okay, so we've done all the swatches now and they are stunning, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into my thoughts on the different swatches for the different colours. So let's have a little look at that. Okay, now we've swatched all of these, let's have a little chat about what I think about all of these colours. So first up, I have the basics colours. So these are all your pretty standard colours, they're all pretty bright. You've also got white and black. And this is what they look like. So obviously the white doesn't show up on the white, but then it does show up on the black. What I can see is some of the lighter colours aren't as opaque on black colour. I wonder if it layered up a little bit, it would become more opaque, so that's something we're definitely going to test later. I quite like that the black is visible on the black, where it's obviously slightly darker. I think that's really cool. Obviously obsessed with this colour. If you've been watching me for a while, you know I like a bit of turquoise. And I've got some minty green nails today as well. I think there's a really nice mix of colours here. I've seen other pen companies do basic pen sets and then there always seems to be a bit too many blues or a bit too many greens. But there is a really nice contrast between all the colours and I think this looks really lovely. I'm intrigued to see what will happen with some of these lighter colours if we layer them up. Oh, that's still a little bit wet. Make sure you leave them to dry for a little bit. Next we have the passion colours, which are all kind of reds, and I'm not really sure why there's a sulphur yellow in here, but I guess that's kind of like happy. So these are all like reds and pinks, and we've got like a dark burgundy at the end. So this is the colour palette. I am a little bit confused by the sulphur yellow. I feel like, I don't know why. I don't know if it suits this colour palette, but it does stand out. I really like this pale violet. I think that's so nice. There are a couple of colours that are very similar. Like when we get towards these reds, they're not too different, but I feel like when you are creating some sort of art piece and you want to add depth, that's where those colours will come into play. Again, the lighter colours are a little bit more translucent on the black, like this sulphur yellow and this cerise colour, but it'll be interesting to see what it's like if we start layering up and adding a bit more pigment to the paper. Next we have the nature colours, and I actually quite like this colour palette. I think it's really lovely. Normally I stay away from like nature colours because a lot of them tend to have a lot of browns. However, there's some really nice greens in here as well. Oh no, I've managed to smudge a little bit here. But you can see there's lots of lovely different greens. Some of these colours here, when I was putting them down, this orangey line did look really similar, but now it's starting to dry. I can see that the colours do look a little bit different. And I like that even the darker colours are showing up on the black as well. That's really lovely. This leaf green is so pretty. Again, there's some of the lighter colours that aren't showing up on the black as well. So yeah, we're going to need to have an experiment with that. And then we've got our violet blue palette. And I was really excited by this palette because I quite like my blue colours and my purples. So I was super excited to try this out. However, is it just me or did these three look exactly the same? So the light azure, the azure and the Egyptian blue, I can't really see any different. And the same with the royal blue, indigo blue. It is slightly different, but I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of very similar colours on this palette, and I know it's a blues palette, so there's obviously just going to be blues, but I just feel like there's not much variation with these colours. I don't know. I'm not feeling it. I feel like maybe, I don't know, maybe there could have been a few more purples. I can see that this is a bit more of a purpley blue, but yeah, it just seems odd that these are all very similar. So next we have our nude colours, and these are actually a little bit brighter than I expected for nude colours. Normally they're a little bit more like these peachy tones, but there is some nice pinks in here as well. And I like that it goes all the way to some dark browns too. So again, there's some colours that are really similar, like this almond and this blush. They look basically the same to me, and also I feel like a blush in my head is a bit more of a pinky colour. Like I feel like one of these is more like a blush. I really like this pale pink, figure out, and I quite like the sepia colour actually. It's got like a really tiny bit of purple in it and it looks really nice. I've just spotted down here, it does say results may vary on the surface the markers are applied, so it'll be interesting to see how well it shows up on black on things like a chalkboard, which is obviously designed for like paint pens and chalk pens. So yeah, we'll have a little play with that later. Then we have our lovely greys. And it's always handy to have lots of different greys just for adding a little bit of depth and also shadows. So these are what the greys look like. I quite like this olive black actually, it's quite like a greeny colour. One thing I'm a little bit disappointed in is there's not like a super light grey. You've obviously got a white one, and I guess you could probably mix it with one of these greys to make a really light grey. I just feel like it could have done with like a really pale grey, especially as some of these greys are very similar, like warm grey 1 and warm grey 2. I can see this one's a little bit darker, but it doesn't look massively different. I would have preferred if these number 1 colours were much lighter, and then you had a little bit more depth to play with. In terms of the differences between neutral, warm and cool, you can definitely see that, especially with the warm. It does feel a lot warmer. And these are actually all showing up quite nicely on the black. They're not going too see-through, even though some of them are a little bit lighter. So that's quite interesting. And then we have our pastels. I mean, how dreamy does this box look? This is absolutely stunning. I was most excited about this colour palette out of all of them because although there are some lighter colours in the original Karin Marker brush pens, there aren't really like a set of pastels like this. So I was so excited and I was not disappointed. These are all stunning. This pastel green actually matches my nails, so pretty happy with that. Because these are all super light colours, they're again not showing up in the black as well, so we'll see what that's like later on. But I absolutely love this colour palette. It makes me feel like a rainbow unicorn. This one here is so light, you kind of can't see it on camera, but it's a really pretty shade of pastel pink. And yeah, I'm obsessed. I love this colour palette. So in terms of writing with these pens, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about how it feels and what the nib feels like. So they are brush pens, which means you can do thick strokes like that, and then you can do thin up strokes like that. They are quite large brush pens, so they're quite similar size to the Tombow Dual ABT brush pens. But I do find that these nibs are a little stiffer compared to the Tombows, so they do feel a lot more easier to write with. You have a little bit more control over transitioning from your thick and thin lines. I think that these are ever so slightly more flexible than their original Brush Marker Pros, but only slightly. It just feels like you can do a much thicker downstroke, but I still feel very in control of the thin upstroke. I love the contrast you can do with these. So you can see that they're not bleeding on this card at all. This is just a super smooth white card and the pen is gliding over it so nicely. I absolutely love it. I think if you are a beginner and you've started off with quite a small brush pen and you're looking to upgrade to a thicker brush pen, I really recommend the Karin Markers. They are a little bit on the pricier side, the Karin brush markers. However, if you go for these Pigment Deco ones, then these are so versatile because you can obviously use them on paper like this, like you can for the normal Brush Marker Pros, but you can also use them on a variety of surfaces, which we're gonna have a little look at later. I'm super excited about. So first up, we're going to test these on some paper. So I've got some white paper here and some black paper. It's both super smooth cardstock, which I really recommend when using brush pens. And we're of course going to try out the turquoise. Now I've also got the turquoise Brush Marker Pro. So these are their original pens. They are a water-based pen. And then these are the Pigment Deco brush pens. So you can see that there's a difference in barrel, but the lid colours are pretty similar. They both work in the same way that they have liquid ink in these barrels, but this one is water-based, so it acts like a normal brush pen, whereas this one is more like a paint pen. So let's just start off with writing the word hi. So these have flexible nibs, so you can do thick lines and thin lines, just like a normal brush pen. Except this brush pen can write on dark paper. So you can see it showing up. It is like fading a little bit as it dries, and you can see it's a little bit more opaque where I've added more ink from the pressure. It's not necessarily as bold as some other paint pens, but I do like how that's turned out. It looks really nice on camera. So if I just show you what it's like compared to the normal pens that Karin Marker do. So you can see they're both just as juicy. So I've just done high there, And then if I do it on the black paper, you can see it's not showing up. It obviously looks a little bit wet, but it's not showing the colour. So that is the main difference between these pens, is because they are paint pens, they can be used on darker materials. I am going to give it a go with the white because I always love testing a white pen. I'm obviously not going to do it on white paper because it's not going to show, but let's see what it's like. Ooh, that looks good. Okay, so this one feels a little bit stiffer than the turquoise one in terms of the nib. So again, it's not very opaque. I actually quite like the kind of depth it gives. I like how it shows the strokes of where you've put the pressure on and taken the pressure off. I think you could create a really nice kind of chalkboardy effect even on black paper, which is really cool. I just want to try one of the pastel colours on this paper as well. I really like this pink, so I just wanted to see what it was like. Yeah, that's nice. So it's actually so pale that it almost looks white. It definitely looks white on camera. There is a really nice pink tinge. So can you see it adds like a lot more ink at these points here, where I'm obviously pushing down on pressure a lot more, which is very interesting. Another thing that I really want to try on paper is how well these pens blend. If you've been watching me for a while, you know I like to blend pens. So I just want to see what it's like mixing these together. So firstly, I'm just going to mix directly on paper. So I'm going to start with the yellow first. Actually, let's go for some colours that are similar initially. So I've got an orange. We're going to go for the yellow first. And we're just going to do a letter A. And then I'm just going to go in with this orange colour. So it's straight away like mixing with that yellow. I don't think I'll need to use any water or brush to blend this. That looks so nice. So now I'm just going to pull that down. Okay, I like this. This is blending so nicely. Let's just get a little paintbrush. I've just got a little paintbrush and I'm just gonna, it's just completely dry, but I just wanted to use it to help blend these colours together more. And you can see where I've built up the colour, it is a lot more opaque on this black as well. It has picked up the paper a little bit there. How good does that look? Okay, let's see what it's like blending the blue and the yellow. I'm intrigued to see if it kind of creates a nice greeny colour. So let's do an M this time. You can see that really like starts to fade on the black. I think you definitely need to build up the colour to make it more opaque. So I'm just going in with this blue. And it's going down quite nicely. It's not necessarily blending and bleeding in as easily as the other colours, so the orange and the yellow. I think you might need to work super quickly with this because it's drying quite quickly. So I'm just going to go back in with some more yellow there and then blue here. So I'm just going to blend each section at a time. So that's actually turning to a nice greeny colour where it's blending now. That looks so pretty. Okay. So you need to work quite quickly, so I'd suggest just doing a little bit at a time rather than trying to blend a whole letter all in one go. And just using a dry brush is really helping. I feel like it looks super artistic, so it feels a lot more like acrylic paint when you're mixing compared to like watercolour. Another thing that I wanted to try out with paper is layering up colour. So I think because these are paint pens, you can actually layer colour on top of each other and they won't blend into each other once it's dried. So I've done these colour blocks. So this is the turquoise and this is the canary yellow. They're both from the basics pack, and I just want to see how they fare up if I go over. So can you see it's built the colour on top, but it's not mixed or blended because the turquoise is already dried below. That's so cool. Where the yellow does go a little bit translucent on darker colours, you can see that it has shown a little bit, and actually that is starting to mix a little bit if I go back in. But it looks like you could build up colour really nicely. So if I do it on this, oh, used the wrong turquoise, didn't I? So if I go in with this, that's so good. So you could put down a load of light colour base colours and then go in on top with some darker colours. That's so cool. I love that. That's so nice. Next, I want to test out on a chalkboard. So this is just standard chalkboard I use quite a lot with chalk pens and acrylic markers, and we're going to test this out. So I just want to see what the white is like first. Yeah, so that acts so different on a chalkboard compared to paper. So you can see it's not drying as much. It is still a little bit translucent on the upstrokes, but I do quite like that depth it gives. That's so nice. It feels nice and smooth to write with as well. Just wanted to try out another like pastel colour. So this is the Pastel Violet from the Pastels collection. Ooh, that is nice and opaque. That is so pretty. Yes, I love that. So again, I just want to see what it's like blending. So these are the True Blue and the Turquoise, and I just want to blend these together and see what it's like. So we're going to do a H. So I've just put the turquoise down first, and then I'm going to go in with the blue. Ooh, made it go quite like a dark green there. So because the chalkboard doesn't soak up the ink, it's definitely staying wetter longer, which is enabling me to blend it a little bit more. I don't think that these colours are different enough for like blending. Let's add in some yellow at the top. Ooh, that's pretty. That is nice. I love how bright and vibrant it feels. So they layer on top of each other really well. That's so nice. Look at that. So this chalkboard has been drying for a little while now, and I just want to see what it's like if I rub my finger on it. You can see, oh, that's That's smudged there, but that's because it's obviously a lot thicker. So where I've put pressure on the pen, it's smudging where the ink hasn't quite dried. But on this word hey, you can see it's not smudging at all. So if you're putting a lot of pressure on your pen, you might need to let it dry for a bit longer. Or on this one, I imagine, oh no, I thought that would smudge because I've layered a lot of ink, but actually it hasn't. So if I take a cloth to this is just a dry cloth. You can see again, it's not going anywhere. So that's pretty permanent. What if I scratch my nail? I mean, it's coming off a little bit, but not too bad. So that's pretty durable on a chalkboard. If I rub really hard, you can see it is coming off a lot more. Let's see how it works with a bit of ghosting. So I'm just taking some window cleaner spray. I'm just spraying this. We'll see how well it comes off. Oh, that is not wanting to budge. So just a warning with chalkboards, it's going to take a lot of elbow grease to get this board clean. So that's just something to bear in mind if you are doing chalkboards with these, but you need to change them up every so often, like if you're doing weddings, or if you just have a chalkboard at home that you want to change every so often. This is going to take a lot of elbow grease to get off. So I guess they're not lying that it's permanent. It's interesting that some of the paint has come off really easily, but some of it hasn't. Okay, I'm gonna go away and clean this board later because you don't want to sit here watch me rubbing out a board. But we're gonna move on to glass now, which I'm super excited about. Okay, now something I'm super excited about is trying these on glass. So I'm actually going to show you again the difference between using the normal Brush Marker Pros and the Deco Markers. We're just going to start off with the Deco Marker first and see how it works on glass. That feels so smooth. That feels so nice to write with. So if I go in with their original markers, can you see that it's kind of bleeding around the edge? It's not staying on the glass all that well. We're going to let these dry and we're going to see how they fare up against each other in terms of rubbing, but already you can see the difference. So this has bled on the glass, whereas this is a lot more crisp. These would be so pretty if you did like little acrylic place names for weddings. It would be so easy instead of having to do faux calligraphy with a paint pen. How cool is that? We're just going to pop this to the side and let it dry for a little bit, and then we'll come back to it and do some tests on this glass. Okay, so I've been letting this dry for literally like 5 minutes, if that. And can you see the ink that is from their standard Brush Marker Pro set has just not stayed on this glass? And this is what most brush pens will do if you use them on glass. They're just not going to work. But this is the Pigment Deco brush, and how beautiful is that? So it's working in the same way as a lot of other paint pens like Posca pens or even Arteza acrylic markers, which I've used in the past. But the difference is it's got a brush tip, so you can create a really nice effect with these. So let's just do a very light rub test with my finger and see the difference. So if I rub with this one, you can see it's smudged a little bit. I think that's just where I haven't let it dry. So if I move down here, it's not smudging at all. So make sure you let it dry before you start rubbing at it. But on this one, you can see straight away that is just not going to dry on the glass. So this can wipe away quite easily. I'm just using a cloth for this. I haven't used any spray, and that's just wiped off. Now, if I were to use a cloth on this, but without any spray, I'm going very lightly. You can see it is scratching off. So, although it is permanent and it's also light fast, if you do rub on it, it will scratch off. Or if I scratch with my nail, you can see that it is coming off. This is quite common for paint pens, to be honest. This isn't anything unusual. If I press even harder, you can see it's coming off a lot more, which is a bonus because if you want to do things like decorate your window, it has a level of permanency that means that it will stay on much better than the other brush pens, but if you do want to take it off, you can. So it's perfect for things like wedding signage, especially. So that's all rubbed off and all clean and perfect. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful and it's given you a little idea of what you could do with these pens. I think they're genius. The fact that you have a brush pen with paint is just amazing. It makes things like chalkboard lettering and writing on glass so much easier. I know these pens have been in high demand since they came out, and they're actually currently out of stock on the Karin Amazon shop, but I will leave links below if you want to get your hands on these because they are beautiful and hopefully they will come back in stock very soon. Massive thank you to Karin Markers for sending me this set of pens to have a play and share with you guys. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, then make sure you give it a thumbs up because that massively helps me. And if there's any other pens that you'd like me to review, then let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you soon. Bye!